She started with less than zero, not a dramatic way of saying she had debt. She had children to feed, no savings, no blueprint, and no one ahead of her in the family who'd done this before. 27 years later, oof, gives me chills right now. Seriously. I'm putting that in here. So 27 years later, she manages her own investment fund, runs a lending company, and has built 8 figures in net worth, which was one of the hardest net worth numbers to break, 7 to 8, right? Not because someone handed her a playbook, because she decided she was going to become the bank instead of borrowing from one. Today's conversation is about what nobody taught you in school and about how money actually works when you finally understand it. Let's go. There are 2 types of people in every financial transaction: the people who put the money in and the person holding it. Banks understand this. Most of us were never taught what to think about which side we're on, right? My guest today spent 27 years in real estate and private lending, building from less than zero with children depending on her until she understood the game well enough to start playing it differently. Today, she manages multiple funds, runs a lending operation, holds a 8-figure net worth, and has built a platform specifically to hand women entrepreneurs the playbook she had to build from scratch. She spent 16 years in oil and gas environmental compliance alongside her investment career. The discipline of that work, the regulatory detail, the risk frameworks, all of it transferred directly into how she thinks about capital. She's a licensed financial professional and a fund manager, a realtor, and a practitioner who never stopped. She's based in Oklahoma City with a global reach, and her message today is exactly what April is built for. Finance doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be understood. Tracy Gore, welcome to Real Talk with Katie Kim. It is beyond amazing to have you on here.
Thank you so much. I am so blessed and honored that you even invited me. So thank you.
I love it. And so before we hit record, I had said, I knew she was a rock star before. I mean, obviously I know Tracy personally and professionally. We are in a couple deals together. I love how she shows up all the time. And when I was doing some more research to have her on here, I come on, I'm like, dude, I know you were a badass, but like, come on, like really? And so I'm so excited to share Tracy's story with you ladies today, because this is exactly why I wanted to start Real Talk with Katie Kim, is to have you in these conversations with me, meet the amazing people in my sphere and what they've taught me and continuing to teach me. As I mentioned, I was like, what? You do this, you do that? Like, I always say, bring me to the candy store. Let's go. So I'm going to jump in with my first question is, you say you started with less than zero, kids to feed, no roadmap. Take me back there. What was actually happening and what made you decide this is going to change?
This is a deep question and one that's pretty profound. So in 2008, a lot of people think of the global financial crisis, or they would think of the housing market crash, right? Yeah. And although I had been in real estate all of my adult life, in 2008, I wasn't thinking about real estate because I found myself deep in the throes of addiction. And one day I was on my bathroom floor with a tear-soaked face, and I cried out to the only God that I knew, which was this figure in the sky that I thought was mad at me, right? And I was like, God, if you're real, I need you. And guess what? He showed up. It wasn't like a lightning bolt or something like that, but he showed up and he consistently put the right people in my life. He took away that desire to use, and he has been redeeming me ever since. Now, even though I had some head knowledge and God had delivered me from that, I really didn't know who I was. And I still had a lot of baggage and a lot of things that I believed that were not true. So I ended up marrying a man that ended up being abusive. And I escaped that marriage. And when I did that, I was left with zero. I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have a house. I didn't have anything. So I had to do a whole lot of research after that on who am I and how did I get to this position? People are like, oh, you're such a strong person. How did that happen to you? Well, that was a good question. And when I escaped that abuse, it wasn't because he was doing it to me. It was because he started to turn on one of the kids. And that was all it took. I was like, oh no. So I jumped in, got involved in escaped with my life that day and took the kids and left him and got divorced and he went to jail. But what I needed to look back on was, why did it take the threat of my children's safety for me to make a move? Why didn't I protect myself? And so that was a deep dive in understanding that I didn't love myself and I didn't think I was worth protecting. So I needed to do a big deep dive on who the Bible said I was and what is the character of God. So that if I'm made in God's image, who is he? What does he represent? What is his character? And who am I really? So I had to start replacing lies with truth. And it's been a continual thing that I do to this day. And in doing so, I figured out a way to give myself permission to rise and to stop shrinking to fit the rooms that I was not even supposed to be in. And so I realized that I needed to be my own hero. Nobody was coming to save me. So we ended up living at my mom's for a while, and I just started diving into every kind of knowledge that I could and all of the skills I already had. And then I just built upon that. So in 2016 was when I finally got out of that abusive relationship and really started betting on myself, right? So to make a long story shorter, I realized that I needed to do investment. I could sell real estate, retail real estate, I call it. I wanted to buy real estate for myself. I mean, I needed a future for my family. You know, I didn't go to college. I didn't have a generation money. Like, we came from middle class. My parents lived paycheck to paycheck. And I didn't realize that just them living paycheck to paycheck had limited my belief on what was the purpose of money. I thought money was to pay your bills. But in reality, money is there to make more of it. If you only think money is there to pay bills, guess how much money you're going to make?
Exactly.
As much money as it takes to pay your bill. So I thought, well, this is working. I'm paying my bills. How come everybody else is rich and I'm not? Well, I had to retrain my thinking, right?
How did you step into that? Like, how did you say, I want more? I mean, that's basically, you're like almost not even you want more. Like, God is telling you, like, you're made for more.
100%. Well, I started realizing that I am valuable and I do bring value and I can do anything I set my mind to. And I needed to step into that. I had always shrunk back and really didn't think I was worthy of any of it. But now I know that I am, and not in a braggadocious way, but in a humble way. God has brought me there. So I looked at my kids and I thought, I want to quit, but there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to. So I got to do something for these children. And my whole thing is that I want to be able to take care of my family. I want to be able to set my kids up for a better life than I had. And I want to help women all over the world understand who they are so that they can give themselves permissions to rise. So that's my passion. I actually wrote 3 books, and all of them are faith-based, and how that's my roadmap to get to the success that I have now. So that's where we are.
So that's so much you just dropped, Tracy.
I know.
And I know there's some ladies that I know are regular listeners that are like, wow, like, and they get it. And what I find is very interesting in listening to that is, not once did you mention the V word.
What's the V word?
Victim.
Oh. Yeah, no. I mean, that's a whole nother mindset.
That's a whole, and I want to go there for a second. I don't want to stay there. I want to go there because being a victim is the situations that happen to you. Being a victim is not how you respond. It can be, it doesn't, but like being a victim is what happens to you. And we can't control that a lot of times. But yet sometimes as women, I see it more with women. Yes, men, you do it too, probably. But like, we beat ourselves up. I should have known better. I should have done this. I should have and whether it's with a situation similar to yours, or it's a situation with finances, right? Like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have spent that. I knew better. Da, da, da. Okay, but you did. Now pivot, right? Now, how do you change the mindset? And I love how you mentioned all these like little drips that are really data points into where your mindset was for money at that point in life, right? Because like you said, you grew up middle class, so did I, right? You look at, like, we didn't have a kitchen floor until I was 12. We did what we could. It was also shoemaker's shoes when you're part of a construction company family. But you get that money story, right? You get that mindset of like, this is what money's for. This is how I do it. And you kind of absorb and you figure it out with the environment you're in until you reach either that pain point to pivot or, you know, the like, I want more, right? And so that's a lot of hard work, what you just went through. And you're speaking from a scar versus a wound, right? Like, and I always say, we always want to speak from a scar, not a wound, because we're still unpacking that. And for somebody that may be still unpacking that and getting out of that mindset, like I know the work it has taken me, therapy, coaches, like accountability groups, reps, looking ugly and showing it, right? Like I showed up like a shit show on this time. Okay, I'm sorry. This is what I'm working with, right? And owning it. How did that look like for you? And maybe it's not as ugly for you as I just said. Like that's my journey. That's my journey, right? But like there's a lot of hard work. It's not like I decided and all of a sudden my life was beautiful the next day, right? There's a lot of hard work that goes into that transition, that progress.
Yeah. So there's a few things that were kind of pivotal in my understanding. Well, a couple of things. So one thing, Joyce Meyer, she's so funny. She said one time, she said, you can be pitiful or you can be powerful, but you can't be both. So I decided I was going to pick powerful. And if you're being pitiful, you're stuck in that victimhood. Mm-hmm. Oh, woe is me. This happened to me. Okay, so it did. Now, what lesson did it teach you? And how can you move on? Right. And there's another one, Dr. Joe Dispenza says, he says, a memory without the emotional charge is now wisdom. So when you're able to look back onto the things that happened to you from the standpoint of, okay, this happened to me. It was terrible. Nothing is okay about it. It did teach me these lessons, and this is the blessing I got from it. And now I'm removed from that emotional charge because I can see the value in it. Do I want anyone to ever go through abuse? Heck no, no way. But I can honestly look back now and say, you know what, God carried me through all of that. And I learned a whole bunch of lessons, and I wouldn't be where I am today had anything changed. So would I actually make changes to my past? Probably not. I mean, the only thing I would change is where I hurt other people. I definitely wouldn't want to hurt other people, but my family. But yeah, I think you just have to make a decision in your life that you're going to go from being a victim to being victorious. And it's all it is a decision. It's a mindset. That's it. You can make a decision today. You know what? Yes, I had all this stuff happen to me and it's terrible. It sucks and I'm miserable about it right now, but I'm going to make a choice today to try to find some value in that. And it's hard. And a lot of times you have to go, you know what? I got to forgive myself. I got to forgive Tracy for not knowing what she knows now. I got to forgive Tracy for making terrible mistakes. I got to forgive Tracy for abandoning her children at a point in her life. Like I have to forgive all of that or it'll just keep me stuck.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to forgive others. You got to forgive yourself first. And sometimes people have to forgive God because they lay a lot of that responsibility on him. So there's a lot of forgiving that has to be done. And, you know, it doesn't have to be a feeling. So when you choose to forgive, you don't got to feel like it. Your feelings are going to catch up. So you say, you know what? I had to forgive, you know, the person that put me through abuse. And I was like, forgive that. Forgive him. He doesn't deserve that. But it's not for him. It's for me. So yes, I forgive him. I 100% forgive him because, you know, he's only doing what he was doing because of the issues that he had. So if it was another woman there, it would have been her. It wasn't a personal attack on me as Tracy, as a person, as my value. It happened to me and I'm going to learn from it and go on. So, you know, I think it just comes down to choice. Are you done being pitiful? Are you ready to be powerful? You got to step into it. There's decisions you got to make and you got to start following that. Your feelings will catch up.
You got pick yourself up by your bootstraps, right? And get going. Yeah. And the point you made on forgiveness is something that I've learned a lot over the last 2 years in doing the hard work is forgiveness is not for the other person. No. It's for yourself. It's for yourself to be able to like let that shit go so you can heal and move forward. Now, building the relationship with that person going forward, that's a different thing. That's not forgiveness. That is how do we work together going forward?
Yeah.
Forgiveness is letting it go, learning, letting it go, and being able to move on so it doesn't eat you up and it doesn't. And that's something that landed with me when you said that because I'm like, wow, I've been doing that hard work for 2 years. And that was something I've learned over the last 2 years of that, having business partners that tackle you, right? And just being devastated personally and having to forgive them. And some, I don't have conversation. I don't have relationships with moving forward, right? Because I choose not to. That's a different boundary. And boundaries, I'm sure, are something you probably worked on based off of that, right? And so I love that. So I love that you spoke into that forgiveness because to me, I think so many times we think, well, like I need to express how I feel to this person and they need to understand where I'm at and like, you know, draw that like thing. And you're like, no.
I got a couple of things to say about that.
Okay.
So, first of all, let's clarify. So, what forgiveness is and what it isn't. Forgiveness is you letting go of the bitterness and the resentment, and all of the hate that you have towards that person, so that you're able to heal and to have joy. Because when your peace is being stolen, the devil's winning. So you got to get that back. The only way to do that is to forgive that person. Now, forgiving them does not excuse their behavior. It does not grant them access to your life. None of that. And another thing is I didn't even, somebody said, well, you need boundaries. I don't remember who it was, but I'm using an irritating voice because I'm sure it irritated me at the time. You need boundaries. I thought, heck, boundary. You know what that is? I don't know what boundary is. I grew up in a great family. Everybody loved each other. Nobody was backstabbing. It was great. I had no, and it's funny because you can come from a great one or a bad one. It doesn't matter. You're screwed either way because you either see all the red flags and it's comfortable for you, and so you like accept that in your life and your other relationships, or you don't know any red flags and so you don't see them and you believe the best and you get screwed over. So it's like, okay, I didn't have any idea of what boundaries were or why you needed them. I seriously had to do a deep dive on just that. Like, what is a boundary and what is it for? And maybe people don't know. A boundary keeps you safe. It keeps certain things out and certain things in, right?
Yes.
And everybody is allowed to have boundaries. You can create boundaries. You do not have to allow someone into your life, even if they think they deserve to be in your life. You get to set the boundary. It's your decision. So boundaries are so important, and I'm so glad that I have them now. And yes, I'm working through new ones all the time because we keep living and learning, right?
Yeah. Well, it's progress, not perfection, right?
Correct.
And when you go into that boundaries, I laugh because if one of my prayer warriors is listening to this, Elizabeth, she gave me this boundary book, and I'll put the link in the show notes. I think she gave it to me. Honestly, I'm gonna say 12, maybe 15. She's probably gonna say 20 years. It'll be in the comments if she responds, guys. And I was like, okay, I got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I finally picked it up probably like 6 or 7 years. I read a chapter and I was like, whoa. And I put it down, and then we did what we all do. We're like, oh, I know boundaries. I got boundaries now. I got boundaries. I didn't know shit. So it was then going into the hard work again, the steps, the reps, not just reading the book, not reading the first chapter of the book. And the analogy, though, that I thought was so powerful in that first chapter that kind of made me put down is one, they related it to real estate, which I love. And they said, think of boundaries in your personal space as like your house on a lot. I'm like, I got this. I got the visual, God. I got it. Right. And it's like you have a white picket fence around it. And there's some people that you keep on the sidewalk and you talk to them over the fence, right? Some people you let in the fence, some people you let on the sidewalk, some people you let on the front porch, right? And you keep going, the family room, the dining room, all this stuff. And it made me like have that visual. And it's not everybody gets full access to you, right? And that was, to me, that first start of a pivot into boundaries and transitions. And I love that you mentioned it. We have a chance to talk about that because I feel that you're right. No matter how your money story, we're all doing life for the first time, right? So your money story, your journey, everything is like what happened to you up to this point. And now when you are hopefully an adult, what are you going to do with that? And what do you want to curate in your life? And part of that is doing the hard work, getting those boundaries, not beating yourself up, and surrounding yourself with great people. And I want to use that because I know we could probably just talk about that journey, and maybe we come back and talk about that. But I want to get in to now your pivot and moving forward, because like I always say, especially to my single mom clients, like I have a hard enough time keeping the shit show together with a husband who works. Like by yourself, like that's like I don't know how you come out sane. I really don't. And I mean that with like all love, like damn, and it is a struggle. It's a fight. And there's so much character building that comes in there. And so I'm gonna pivot, even though I know some people are like, no, keep going with the but you were building and make sure I get the timeline right here, but you were building like a 16-year-ish career in oil and gas in that environmental compliance area, while you're also in building investments on the side and also raising kids, figuring it all out. Like, how did that all coexist? How did it feed? I mean, how did you handle that? And how did you start to continue to lean in and grow?
Okay, so let me correct the timelines real good so everybody
Okay.
gets it. So, as soon as I was an adult, I was a cosmetologist. So I cut hair
All
for
right.
20 years, right? So I always cut hair until
Yeah.
my physically I couldn't do it anymore. While I cut hair, I got my real estate license and I would sell a house to everybody that sat in my chair. It was great. Never had to market, right? Because they already sold on me. I did their hair. They trusted me with their hair. They're going to trust me with their finances. So uh,
Well, and the hair salon is where you go get the good gossip. Like it like the barber shop, like there is a hair salon. Kelly owns Hughes Hair Salon in Keller Station. I say I go in there and I just sit down for 5 minutes and like you got what's going on in the town. I mean, they're great lead generation sources. Yes.
what's funny is, there's a lot of my clients that at the end, they would be like, okay, send me your counseling bill. And I would crack up. But what's even funnier is somebody had did a background check on me at one point and they said, oh, you're a licensed counselor. I was like, no, that's not me. But it's just funny because I was unlicensed counselor for a long time, cutting people's hair. All joking, but anyway. So then after that, in 2008, I was doing real estate and hair when I went through all of that stuff. And then all of the oil and gas stuff, this is one of the blessings that came from the abusive relationship. I was taught by my ex.
You were
I
what?
went to, I was taught by my ex-husband.
Oh,
Yeah. So I went with him to the field every day and I learned everything about environmental compliance. And so then once I left him, the clients reached out to me and said, listen, we know that you've been doing this. It's you, it's not him. And we don't want to work with him. We want to work with you. Will you open your own company? And I said, yes. So that was a God thing right there. So
amen.
and in the process of all of that abuse and all the things happening, I lost my real estate license for a minute. And I had to go back and retake the freaking test again.
Oh my gosh.
So in
Oh,
2016, I'm sitting there in my childhood bedroom that's like this big with my whole life sitting here. It seemed very small. Anyway, anyway, I was like, now I gotta, on top of all this, I gotta go back to school to get my license reactivated, right? So I was like, so I did. And again, it was because I had people depending on me. Now, if it was just me, maybe I would have stayed in my pity party a lot longer. I don't know. But I looked at my children and thought, you know what? They deserve a better life than this. I'm going to give it to them. So I started doing it out of necessity, and that gave me the fire under my butt to get going, right? And then, like I said, I've been diving into my value. Once I valued who I was and I understood that I was able to do more, I wanted more. And you start making one decision in the right, it's just like a ship when it's just one little degree. You're going to go so far in the right direction if you'll just make one consistent decision in the right way,
yeah.
over time. And so I started making better decisions. I started getting around the right people. I was able to um, educate myself in the investment side. And all along, I was doing the environmental compliance for the oil and gas company, and I still do today. So that's a whole nother department, but it's been great. And now I almost forgot your question.
Okay. So it was like you're in okay, it's a perfect bridge actually. So clarifying like that oil and gas environmental compliance, when did you start building on the investment side? Like when
Okay.
did those two tracks coexist or what was the next
Right. I
professional
got you.
step from there? Yeah.
Okay. During COVID, I took on some other roles and I started being a fractional CFO for
All
people.
right.
And I made more money during COVID than I had made ever. And so that was very good.
Because you put
But
your
I
head down.
decided I was going to do the investing, right? So I started joining mentorships
Mhm.
that would teach me some of these things. And it's funny because I had been investing in real estate at a young age, not knowing the strategy that I was doing. I thought I just made it up. It's like this actual strategy, arbitrage of things, what so forth. But it's funny, I could look back and could be like, I've been doing this most of my life and different things. And so
Yeah.
um, when I joined a special group in 2021 and I started understanding all of these options that you could have, that because I think for a while I was looking through life through the lens of the real estate license, and that keeps you bound into these things. But outside of that, without violating anything that I'm, held up to, there's other ways to do business. And I was like, okay, wow, there's all these things that I can do that I couldn't do if I'm just trying to sell retail real estate, right? And that's when the private money lending started. So it didn't start back before. It started in 21 when I started betting on myself. So, and I got
Investing in
strategic.
yourself.
Yeah. So I started getting strategic partnerships. When people are probably going, well, how do you become the bank if you don't have any money? Good point.
That's a great
Well,
question.
what you need to do is you need to find somebody that has the money, that doesn't have the time or the knowledge, and then you get the knowledge and you provide the time to help them with their money, right? So it's called other people's money, right? OPM.
Yep.
There's so many ways to have meaningful partnerships, and again, it's almost like a marriage. So before you get a partner, make sure that you know who they are and what they stand for, and always have all of the responsibilities, the expectations, all of the things upfront and in writing. And how are you going to handle a conflict when it happens? I said when, because it's not if, it's when. How will you agree ahead of time to handle that conflict so that you can maintain your integrity and all the things? So I started in 21 and now it's 26. So from 21 to 26 is when the net worth grew.
I love it. And so I want to back up a couple things on the private money lending. Okay. And I love that you mentioned partnerships, because I can look back, and I haven't, but I probably should, is when my net worth and my impact, because I look at it both ways. It like doubled, compound, whatever you want to say, is when I had that next relationship, right? That next strategic partner that enabled me to stay into what I call my ZOG, my zone of genius. And they stayed in theirs, and we like leveraged the network that we both had, right? Leveraged the opportunities. So when you're starting with private lending, and I think it's interesting that you say like OPM, sometimes I call it opium, like other people's underutilized money, right? And you're reinvesting it for them. Because like, as you mentioned, everybody has, and I teach this in my academy, they only have so much time, talent, and treasure. And I call it the time, talent, and treasure triangle. And so if you're at capacity at one of those points, bringing in leverage in terms of a strategic vetted partnership, I'm going to go 3 deep on that one, that can help expand that capacity in a way that you have no idea, right? Like, how do I do hard money lending when I have like credit card debt and this debt and this debt, but I know I can show up differently, right? And so I think of some of my early on partnerships, and they had maybe knowledge or scars or connections. I had like grit, I had sweat equity, I had heads down. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to work harder than anybody else. And that's what they needed, right? Because like, I don't have time to babysit this. Well, I do. And I will like, and I'll bring it to the table. And how do we do this? And those are somehow like some of my best relationships and partnerships formed that way. So I love how you mentioned that, like, how do you do this when you don't have any? I want to do private lending, but I got nothing in the bank, right? And that is great. I appreciate you sharing that. And I want to then go into how you specifically, and I don't think you specifically work with women, but you specifically focus your messaging and focus on women. Why women? What do you see holding women back from private lending and fund level? I'm going to say fund level investing that nobody talks about openly.
Oh, well, it goes back to that mindset and your value and what you've been believing about yourself, the environment that you're in, the things that you unconsciously believe that you don't even know you believe. I think a lot of that, especially with women, because we have a certain place in society. We're the moms. We're the men are the providers. Like there's just all these things, and a lot of times we shrink to fit in that. And so, when I decided I wasn't going to shrink anymore, that gave me the permission to go far and wide. Like, you know what? I don't have to shrink. I can do anything I want to do. And so then you got to get clear with what do you want to do? If you want to have passive income, if you want to have 7 streams of passive income by the time you're however age, reverse engineer that. What are they going to take for me to do today to move my needle a little bit forward? Whatever that is, that's what you got to do. But you got to reverse engineer it. You got to have a plan. And, I've never been a goal setter, like a traditional goal setter. Yeah. And I don't know why. I mean, everyone's like, oh, goals, whatever. I'm like, I just shoot for the stars. And maybe I'm an opportunist. I'm like, whatever I can get, I can make work. If I can help turn opportunities into structured, financeable, income producing assets for people, that's what I'm going to do. And I focus on women because they are the ones that are usually they give up their careers, they give up their education because they're at home with children, and then all of a sudden they get a divorce, and they're thrown into this, and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what they're capable of, and they've been held back. They've got to have their mind rewired. They've got to have their money story rewired, and then they got to just go for it. And getting around other women that are doing the things that you want to do, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like there's a lot of us that are here, and I got a lot of help when I needed it. And so now I want to reach back and help the next woman, because we have to do that. We can't just take and store. It has to flow through. Everything has to be a win-win. And when you learn something that can help someone else, I feel like I have to go tell that. I have to help the next woman. Because I know there's women out there stuck and they don't know what to do. And so they can do anything they want to do. They just got to figure out what that is.
Yes. I love that. I always say, like, build one, bring one. Like if I'm building myself, I'm bringing somebody with me. And that's so right. When you, and I focus, my messaging, and I had a fire lit under me about financial education, especially when I started to hear some of the statistics about, and it was at Investor Con like 2 years ago, I think 3 years ago, some statistics. And I was like, I literally was like, got it, God. Like, you need me to start educating women. I got it. I mean, it was like, when he hits you over the head with a frying pan, it was like every break, there was another statistic that I just like lit me on fire. And I think a lot of times guys will go and they'll ask those questions, where women, we do shrink. We're like, oh, I don't want to shake the boat. I don't want to rock. But there was an interesting statistic that has sat with me too, is that a lot of times children will not exceed the net worth that their parents were at. Yeah. Because that's all they see, that's all they know. And I'm like, screw that statistic. So, but like, it's true, right? Because you don't have that network, you don't expand out, you, again, do what you said you were doing, right? I'm looking at, I got money to pay bills. I'm not looking at, how am I building generational wealth? How am I setting my kids up and learning the tools? But you're right. There are so many women that want you in that room, that are very passionate about teaching. You and I are in that room. We're two of those ladies. I want to ask you the question is like, what for you changes once a woman starts to see herself as someone who can hold capital rather than chase it, or can do these investments and actually, like you said, start investing in themselves? Like, what do you see? Like, yeah.
A lot of things. It's the most beautiful thing ever to witness it, right? It's like, gets me all giddy inside. I don't want to cry. I don't want to cry. Okay, stop. Okay, anyway, so I want to say a couple of important things that women can do, actually, if they can't afford mentorships right now. Mm-hmm. If they will find conferences that go on all over the place, find a conference that's in the area of what you think you're interested in, and attend every live event that you can, and go prepared to network. Because I can trace back every one of my partnerships, and I have a lot, all came from a live event where I met them and then nurtured that relationship. We met at an event.
Okay? I was going to say, yeah, we met at a dinner that like somebody at the conference put together, and she's like, I've met all these amazing women this weekend. I want to have dinner with you all. And we're like, okay. And it was amazing.
Right? So that's my point, is you got to get into the rooms. And a lot of time you have to pay to be in the room. But a lot of times it doesn't have to be that gigantic ticket price, because here's a trick. If you will find the conferences that you want to go to, and you can attend as a general admission, whatever you can afford, but the next time save up and get that VIP ticket. Why? Because that's going to put you in the room with the inner circle that's paid the high ticket. Now, all of a sudden you can network, get their phone numbers, and start getting access to the people that paying that big money is going to get you in. Yes, you will pay a lot of money for the instructions and the whatever they're teaching you, but the real value comes from your network. It's the next person that's going to help you get to the next level. And there's that book, Who Not How. It's so important, because we don't have, I mean, yes, I was doing all of this alone per se, but I didn't have to do it alone. Well, number one, I've got God. Number two, I found strategic partners that would help me. You have to find the who that knows how to do the thing that you're not good in, just like staying in your level of genius, just like you said. There's people that need you, whatever your genius is, there's people that need you. Find the people that have the genius where you're weak in, and then seek them out. See if you can get a partnership. But yeah, going to networking events is so imperative, in my opinion, because you've got to expand your network. If you stay in the little town you were born in, I mean, Jesus can do miracles in his hometown. I'm just saying. Sometimes you got to get out of there.
Yeah, big pilgrimage. I love that input. And I look at the conferences I go to again, am I giving or getting? Right. So if I'm talking, a lot of times I'm giving, but I also look at like, what can I get from the room? Who can I connect with? Like, what is that, again, meaningful connection? We mentioned Investor Con, which is in June, and it's, I think, this year in Scottsdale. Self promotion. I am speaking on a stage about the pivot that paid off. So
Nice.
hopefully I'll see you there as well. I want to ask you what's another great conference you have after that. I'm going to give one first is I went last year to Globe Street Women of Influence. I was again asked to be on a panel. So I went and I have never been to a commercial real estate conference with so many badass women in the room. Like, and it was a smaller conference. Some of these mega conferences, they're not maybe the right fit. Again, like you said, evaluate what it is. But I went there. The networking was great. The happy hours afterwards. It's also being in the room after the session too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being social. Don't just go to your hotel room and sit there, right? Be out,
Exactly.
network. Because your network is your net worth, right? Like
Yeah.
you mentioned. So what's one conference that you love going to every single year, or that maybe was a big strategic connection? Because I also love, before you answer that, I also love the second part you said, and I got invited to a conference in January that I thought like, oh my gosh, this is way overpriced. Like, and I'm a very cost effective, like my money's got to earn $1 in a return. And I'm like, I don't know. And it was a girl in my accountability. Liz, I'm talking about you if you're listening. And I went into this room and it was like the professional ass kick that I needed. And I was
Nice.
like, I literally, there was a working meeting, which that kind of blew my mind too. I'd never been to a working conference, which was amazing. And I, at one point, got up from the table. I got up from the table because I was so pissed off. And she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I just need to not talk to somebody for 10 minutes." And she's like, "Oh, okay." I know she was thinking, like, "Oh my gosh, I invited her." And I was like, I just calculated the opportunity cost I lost last year by holding myself back.
Yeah, that's a real ass kick.
That was the ass kick. And I'm like, I'm done. Like, we're done with this. And then I was able to like digest it, kick myself in the ass, and then move on. But how many times I've never done that before. But how many times do we limit ourselves? And we kind of know we do, but we don't actually go back and run the numbers. And for me, I'm a visual person. I'm a number person. And I ran it and I'm like, never again. Never again. I am believing in myself. I'm leaning into my brand, my zone, my passion. And those are the rooms when you talk about, yes, the conference, there's a VIP, and do a stretch conference, like do something you want to do. And that's where I was going with, I want to give you the backstory because I'm like now, like, I want to know every ass kicking conference I should be at, right? Like I want to lean into that rep a little bit more.
A couple of things. First, I want to tell people that whenever you go to any kind of a networking event, somebody told me this and it was super valuable advice. So I want to give it. When you go, don't just go blind. Go with one ask and one give. One thing that you need and one thing that you can give. And when everybody that you encounter, have that conversation. What is it that you need? And this is what I offer, and this is what I need. And also, I think it's Mandy McAllister that says, what is the one introduction that I could make for you today that would change the trajectory of your life? And so I love that. And so now I incorporate that in, what is the one connection that you need? The one invitation that if you got it, it would change your life. And a lot of times people don't know that. So I like to have that in my head when I go so that I can network with intention. So it doesn't really matter which networking place you go to, you got to have those skills first. And there's all kinds of different things about that too. Using AI to record your conversations and summarize things and get to-do lists afterwards so you can follow up. There's a whole bunch of, strategies behind networking with intention. But one of the best things that I went to was the REAN Live. That's the Women's Real Estate Investor Network.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love Beth Azer, the Women's Investment Summit.
Yes.
That one's awesome. And Investor Con is good. What are some of the other ones? Ray's Masters was always good, but I'm not sure if they're doing those anymore. I don't know, but I'm going to be in lots of different summits coming up. Catherine Bell and her team, we're going to be doing some stuff with Wealthwise Women and the Opportunity Zone Summit. So
I'll do some opportunity zones.
There's going to be a bunch of those coming up that would be very good for people. We're coordinating one right now that's going to be a live in-person event in Scottsdale at it's a car club. So like some really awesome cars there. But it's going to be kind of like a working meeting. Like you said, we're going to actually do deals. Like we're going to actually do stuff. And so I'm super excited about that. That's going to be awesome. And it depends on what your area of expertise is that you want.
Yeah.
And now that I'm going after more like institutional money, I need to be in different rooms than I used to be in. Now I don't need so much strategic partnerships as I need more money to fund bigger deals, right?
Yes.
So then I got to go to different places where industrial money hangs out. So it's just a lot of research that you need to do. And so now I'm pivoting to where I go and what I do. That's about it. And anything local, if anything is local, or if you can get on virtual stuff, you're not going to get your networking, but you can get a lot of valuable nuggets of wisdom in virtual summits and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, low barrier to entry. Yeah, and I love that because that's also building that local area. And you mentioned going after institutional money, and I love that it's now you need to be in different rooms, like what you just said, and that's where I think there's as you're growing, there's always a next level. There's always something to strive for, which I think is part of the fun journey.
Yeah.
I know some people find it frustrating, but I always think that's part of the fun. And I want to bring it back to the center. I want to bring it back to the cross, literally. So you've built your platform, around a Christ-centered financial strategy. And you mentioned a little bit so far about how your faith has helped shape your life. How has also your faith helped shape the way you approach money, wealth, and then what you're building with like those institutional investors? And because some people might think, well, ooh, that might be getting you in a different like cold box, right? But having that platform and that base, how has that really started propelling you into what you're building now?
Okay, so a couple of things. If you don't know who Myron Golden is, I would really highly recommend watching him. He is the best Bible teacher that I've ever heard, and he's also a millionaire. So he teaches on business strategy through the lens of the Bible. Everything he does is through the lens of the Bible. So I learned a lot watching his stuff. I actually coach on money mindset and busting biblical money myths and all the things because I had to do a deep dive on what does the Bible say about wealth. Because think about it, we are culturally inundated with money as being evil. If somebody is super rich, what are they? Dirty rich. I mean, look at all of these hero and villain movies. They're like the hero is this poor orphan boy, and the evil genius is the rich dude, right? So we're programmed to think that money is evil. And in the Bible, it says, people say the money is the root of all evil. That's not what it says. What it says is money is the root of all types of evil. So what that really means, if you do a word study on it, it means people will commit every single type of sin for their love of money to enable to get more. That's basically the breakdown of it. It's not that money is evil. Money is not evil. In fact, in Genesis, it talks about gold being in the world. And so God mentions gold in Genesis before there was ever trade, before we ever needed wealth. He mentioned that there was gold there and it was good, right? So why? It's because God wants us to understand that in his environment, wealth is natural. It's a natural occurrence. He created wealth for us. It talks about Abraham being very rich. And people are like, oh, that means he is rich spiritually. Well, maybe, but it specifically says rich in gold and silver and cattle. So guess what? God provided him wealth. Why? Because he wanted to. It's natural. So when I started realizing that money wasn't evil, but the love of it will create people to sin in order to get it, and that's evil, and that God designed wealth for his people. He designed it for us. So then I looked at it all differently. I was like, oh, okay, let's do this. All right, God. Okay. And then, new level, new devil, right? So whenever you do something new, you'll get into attack. And that's okay because it's just part of it. There's a law in the land, law of so many different laws. One of them is, everything is two-sided. So have you ever seen a one-sided piece of bread, a one-sided piece of paper, a one-sided coin? No, it doesn't exist because there's two sides to everything. So there's good and there's evil. And it just is what it is. There's a blessing to every burden. that's why you can look back now and say, okay, you know what? This all these things that happened to me sucked, but there's got to be a blessing attached. It's the law. It's just part of it. So you go find it. And if you once you start graduating from all of that, you start rewiring your mind, you start looking for the blessing first. Like, oh, there's a challenge coming. What's the lesson here? What's the blessing that's going to come out of this? And then you get excited about, that's why it said in the Bible, people get excited about the next challenge. Why? Not because they want to be challenged, but because there's going to be a blessing in it and a new level that you're going to get to. And once you get there, there'll be another test, right? So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but faith is never at the back of what I do. It's at the forefront. And I make that perfectly clear with everyone so that there's no misrepresentation. And when I am vetting people, I want to work with people that are aligned with my integrity and with my faith. And I'm not saying that if you're not a Christian, I can't work with you. That is not what I'm saying. I will respect everything that you do and your decisions. That's fine. But I also want you to understand that I'm not going to compromise on what I think either. Right. So, I don't know. I think there's a way to love people, and you can love a lot of people and let them into your inner circle. You can love people from afar. All of it boils down to what you feel called to do. Who do you want to work with? Why do you want to work with them? Do you understand that money is a tool to make more of it? Why? So that you can take care of your family. The Bible says that we are to leave an inheritance to our children's children's children. That's a lot of people. Do you have enough money today that if you die 3 generations down or taken care of, I got to strive for more. That's what keeps me going. Like I got a lot of responsibility here and I got to make it, right? So I'm not going to do it without God's help, and I'm not going to compromise my position to get there either.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting. It makes me think when you're talking of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book by Gary Keller. I don't know if you read that in your real estate journey. He gives an example of the money mindset that a lot of people have, and they're like, well, I don't want to make, he's talking with like a new agent, and one of the examples, like, I don't want to make a lot of money because like I don't want to be seen as like that greedy, person. He goes like, let's back that train up. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it was like, so if you had more money, and I love this question, because in essence, it was like, if you had more money, what would you do? And, she answered the question, like, well, I'd help my mom out. And it's been a year since I read that book, but like, and do all these great things. And he's like, yes, he's like, money doesn't change people. It reveals people.
Yes.
And I love that, because if you're a good person and you get more money, you're going to do more good. If you're a shitty person and you get more money, you're just going to be more greedy and more shitty, right? Like, and like you said, there's two sides to every story. And especially as I've learned in my journey, is there's a fine line between blessing and being humble and ego and pride.
Yeah.
Like celebrating the win and being like, God, that came into my bank account right when I needed it. Thank you. And like, yeah, I got this, I'm rolling. And like, it's such a fine line. And like you said, new level, new devil, love that. I mean, I'm swiping that one. I'll give you credit. And in that, it's coming back to that root, that center of like, thank you, God. And there's a lot of times, like, we have this thing in our accountability, we say it's like follow the path to peace. And anytime things turn more stressful, we just do that 5-hand thing, recenter, refocus. It's the little things, right, that, like you mentioned, can get us off track or can keep us on track. And so as we're looking at those things that get us off and on, and you mentioned the Bible says, I love that, of building that wealth for generations. So what does that generational wealth actually look like in practice? Like, what are you building for your own family?
Okay, so that's a really great question. One strategy or tool that I like to use is the infinite banking method. So with whole life insurance. And so I actually design those policies for investors also. That's another thing. Got lots of tools in my tool belt. But the premise behind that is you super fund a policy. So mine is like $50,000 a year, but I can go up to either 75 or 100. I don't remember. So I'll put $50,000 of my income in that a year, but then I have this actual cash value that's showing that I can borrow, and I will borrow money out of it, go put that money on steroids by investing in private money loans or real estate or whatever I want. And then I will get that return. When I get the return, then I can pay back that loan. I can pay back the simple interest that it charged me, and I can capture that spread. All at the same time, that money that I put in to begin with, before I borrowed against it, is still sitting there It's still compounding, guaranteed 3% every single day. And it's leaving this giant death benefit to my family, tax free. This is how the rich people keep wealth into their families for generations, because now the trust can be the beneficiary. And in your trust, you can tell it exactly how you want everything to happen. And like the Rothschilds and all these people, they set it up where the trust is the beneficiary, and every single person that's born, they get a new life insurance policy on them. And this whole thing rinses and repeats. And what happens is the generational wealth stays within the family. So, say I die and millions of dollars goes out to my family, in the trust, it would say, now that money has to actually pay for X, Y, and Z insurance policies for these other people, the other generation, before they can take any money out. And it's an awesome system to understand. And there's a book by Nelson Nash called Become Your Own Banker that people can read if they want to learn more about that. That's an awesome thing. And, really, I think structuring is very important. You can get wealth, but what are you going to do with it? You got to have a plan. You got to know, first of all, you don't want to keep $1 million in one bank. Why? Because it's not all insured. They only insure up to 250,000. So you got to have sweeps accounts that if you go over 250,000, it'll sweep into another account that's also guaranteed. So there's things that you need to learn and educate yourself on. And I forgot the question again. So I just get to talking, and
I love it. I love it. I love that more than the question answer. But you answered it really, because the question was when you talk about generational wealth, what does that actually look like in practice? And you mentioned and what are you building for your family? And so you answered the question. It was all good. And I want to tag on that. When you talk about your kids and handling it over, and I love that book. I'll reference that in the show notes. I've also read What Would the Rockefellers Do?
Yes.
And it's similar. It talks about, again, the whole life policies and how it compares like the Rockefeller family and the Vanderbilt family, and how they mention a specific piece when they talk about like the family constitution. And so we've started implementing this in our family. We don't have it all the way drafted yet from the legal checkbox that is in my brain. But we have family health and wealth meetings, and we do more, less, start, stop. And so it's like, what do we want to see more of in our family dynamic? What do we want to see less of? Some of that's food. But what do we start doing and stop doing, right? Like I said, I want to stop folding people's socks. Like I hate folding people's socks in laundry. And it's something simple like that, but it's those incremental little things that help build that better dynamic. And so people are like, okay, Katie hates socks. I hate socks. I hate folding socks.
Yeah, socks are a bummer.
Point. So then when you're setting up those points, one of the things we're starting to bring our kids into is those financial conversations. So what was as you're talking about generational, what was one of the first conversations that you had with your kids? And, did it go well? Or would you do it differently?
So that's a really loaded question. So, I think, just like I said, how I learned finances through watching and nobody ever talking about it. Nobody talked about money. It was taboo. You didn't talk about it. We just had to figure it out. I don't want that to happen with my kids. I like to play those games, like the cash flow games and things like that. So my oldest is autistic, and he's a genius. So he would help me do data entry, and he's really good with creating things. And so I had him helping me. I mean, more for him than me. You know what I mean? To feel good. But that's a whole nother conversation. Now, my middle child, Jance, he is actually one of my business partners. So he went and got his real estate license, and we have a real estate team. And so he handles all of the retail real estate for me now. And it's such a blessing. And he also comes to the office every day, and he will do a lot of accounting work for me. He's finding out that he's a spreadsheet nerd, just like his mommy. And we had no idea until he got in front of QuickBooks. He was like, "This is great." I'm like, "Oh, you like it? Good," because I'm not loving it.
Here's your passion.
So he's all in. And now Zoe's 15. She's been working for me off and on for a couple of years, doing just certain things. And she's got her own bank account now. She's all those kind of things. And my kids never really got allowance.
Yeah.
They just had things they had to do around the house. I'm not going to pay you for it. You just got to do it. But then, of course, I made sure that all their needs were met and so. But now that Zoe's 15, she's going to start attending all of the conferences with me. And now she's already been accepted into the engineering school over at the Career Tech here. Okay. But they're full, so she doesn't get to start next year. But she wants to go into engineering, which is like amazing because that'll be a great job. But she's going to start going with me to all of these networking events so that she can start absorbing it to see what exactly she wants.
I love that.
I would love for her to have every option available to her more than what I had for me, right? So that she can make informed decisions going on. And she's only 15, so she doesn't have to have it figured out right now, but she needs to know how money works. What does she want for her future? Like, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, I want to be an engineer. You don't. First of all, I changed careers how many times? I mean, I don't know how many people are working in their degree. I'm just saying. So I'm not saying don't go to college, but I'm saying if you don't go to college, that's okay too, because there's other things you can do. But I don't want her to just be stuck on one thing and then change her mind and feel like a failure, because that's not how it is.
Yeah.
You got to have, what, this is what I want for my life. I want to be able to have, 7 streams of passive income by the age of whatever. I want to have this. I want to have this degree. I want to be work in this field, whatever it is. All of the strategies can change, but as long as you're exposed to them, you can make educated decisions. So I want her exposed to everything so she can start formulating what she wants for her life. Now, if I have it my way, she will like take over Tracy Enterprises and, all the things, but I can't force that on her. I want people to work in what they love. And so when you're in an organization, you need to put people where they need to be, not where you want them to be, based on what they love or don't love. You need to make sure that you're not just filling a spot, but with a warm body, because they won't work really well in that area if they don't like it. So I like to find out what is their genius and how do they want to contribute to the company, that kind of thing. But I think having conversations, the whole thing is, it doesn't really matter exactly what you say, but you've got to open the conversation. You got to have an open-ended conversation of talk about money. If your child wants something and you can't give it to them, you say, you know what, we don't have the money today, but we will in the future. Let's figure out how we can map this so that you can help me get this money. Like, it's going to be this. It's not just like, oh, we can't afford that, because that's going to teach them that you're broke. You don't want that. So you got to open conversations, have a dialogue with them, let them talk to you about things. If they want designer jeans, okay, why? Why is that so important? Well, so-and-so has it. Okay, well, let's get to the underlying issue here, right? And then figure out, so if you want those, you can get them, but you're going to have to work for me 3 days a week and take out the trash every day instead of once a week. Something, it depends on their age, but you can give them responsibilities to do, and you can pay them for those responsibilities, but don't call it an allowance, and don't make it just house cleaning, because they need to learn how to do their own laundry. Everybody in my house does their own laundry. I don't do socks. I do my own, and you know what they do? I just flip them over and throw them into the drawer.
I fired myself from all laundry, just so you know. I have a intense chore chart. And I actually have it where you can like lose money if you do a chore. Like if you complain about it, you deduct. If you leave the wash in the dryer, you deduct $1. Like it is like, what? I'm like, oh no. Like this is real life here. Like we're talking consequences and changes. And so I love that. And
when Zoe was little, we had a chore chart, and like she would get stars for like just doing normal tasks. Like when she was real little, it was like, oh, I brushed my teeth, I brushed my hair, I got my PJs on, I went to bed on time, like whatever it is, right? But she would get those stars, and the stars would represent a exciting thing that she wanted to do. She got to pick. If you get so many stars this month, what do you want to do? I want to go to Incredible Pizza. Whatever. I want a new book. It could be anything. It doesn't even matter. And it's okay. So this is what you're gonna have to do to work up to that. If you get so many stars, we're gonna get it. And then it's like, and she gets to celebrate her progress. And understand that she can actually do things, and make sure that they don't make it too hard and you don't make it too hard on them. You know what's funny? I told Zoe I wasn't going to enroll her into driving school until she got up by herself every single day at a certain time. And that was like a area of my life I struggled all my life. And so now I'm realizing it might have been a little too strict. I may have to go back and go, let's redo this negotiation, because she's a straight A student. She's homeschooled, but she teaches herself. Let's not get it twisted. I don't do anything. I'm like a general approver. Yeah, you're good. Okay.
Yeah.
She's a straight A student, honor society. Like she cooks. She's an amazing chef. She cleans. She's like, she's just amazing. And so this one little area is like keeping her stuck. I'm like, oh no, I probably need to give her a break. I need to probably rewrite those rules on there. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to reevaluate and go, you know what? You're amazing in all these areas, and I don't want to hold you back. So let's get something that's a little bit more attainable, right?
I love that. And that gives us permission to pivot, right? Like,
Absolutely.
and it's interesting you say that because we moved from Illinois to Texas to Austin a couple years ago, and my youngest, who is my negotiator, I call him my fraternity president, and I was 11, now it's 13-year-old body, and he goes, Mom, we need to talk about this chore chart. And I'm like, okay. He goes, the cost of living is higher in Austin than it is in Illinois, and so we need to do an adjustment. And I said, okay, well, propose it to me. And he goes, okay. And he did. And then he was like, I'd like to add a couple more things. And again, when you have those kids, and I think this is what you're saying about your daughter, like, I just don't want to screw them up. Like, they're good. They got these habits. And so, like mom to mom, I'd be like, hey, I think this was harder. For me, I'd be like, maybe my terminology is maybe I'm projecting what I'm working on onto you, right? So give me some options to consider. And that's what I love about the pivot. And I've embraced it more as a mom and be like, okay, well, like maybe I was projecting. Like, what would you do? And like open end the question. Because what are you doing? You're teaching negotiations, right? You're teaching it's
100%.
okay that you went to this path and you pivoted, and it's
Yeah,
all good. It's all good. That's life, right? And how
it's
we do
really
it.
good.
Love
When
that.
you give yourself permission to pivot, so,
Mm.
this is what we say, when things don't go right, we don't panic, we pivot, right? So it's okay to give yourself permission to change your mind. And here's, when my kids were little and I would discipline them, how many times did you go, you're lying, because you're like emotional? Well, everybody knows that's not going to happen. When you give discipline, it's got to be something you can live with. It's not like, whatever it is, because it's going to affect you. So you got to like weigh it out, your options. Wait a minute. And if I do that, then this is all going to happen to me. I don't want that to happen. So make sure, but give yourself permission to change your mind and give your kids permission to change their mind. It's okay. As long
Yeah.
as you have open dialogue. That's the whole thing. Communication is key. And I know a lot of times when teenagers get prickly, they get where they don't, they're becoming their own person. They've got their own issues internally and all the things. And even though sometimes they won't really talk to you, just them knowing that they can
Yeah.
is instrumental in how they will, handle things moving forward. So
Yeah. And giving them, like you said, those skills when they're younger, where it is like stars. I think of I was actually I had brought this into a conversation I had with a tenant that's moving into one of our spaces, and he's creating a pizza restaurant. And I go, okay, you're probably too young and he's a younger kid, he's a younger man, he's a man. And I said, you're probably too young to remember like the Book It program from Pizza Hut. I don't know if you remember that, but I remember reading massive amount of books so I could get the star to go to Pizza Hut to get my own small personal pizza and thinking like, I earned this. And there
yeah,
was so much satisfaction in that. And I said to him, I go, if you want to do something that truly impacts the community, because that was in alignment with what he wanted, I'm like, figure that program out. I said, because I was hounding my parents to go, like, I did the work, now I want the reward, right? And I think it's no matter what that conversation is in your life or with your kids, it's figure out what are the reps and the steps to get to that goal and make sure it's their goal and they own it, right? That accomplishment. And so, not that I planned this, but that teed up to my final question for you, which was, if somebody's listening right now and has $100,000 sitting in the bank. Let's say, give me a $5,000 and $100,000 sitting in a savings account, earning, I'm going to say almost nothing. What do they do first? Like this week, what's an action or a rep that they can take this week to start building that generational wealth or to get on the path to just stabilizing or their goal on that part?
I would say for sure do all the numbers. So wherever you have it now, do those numbers out and do it out to however long it needs to go, right? And see what that final outcome is and see if you're okay with that. If you're okay with it, stay your course. If that is like not near what you think you're going to do in your life, then you got to pivot. And you've got to now say, okay, well, what are my options with this amount of money? So if it's $100,000 and you're probably an accredited investor, you can invest in our fund. You can invest in many funds, in oil and gas, real estate, whatever, debt, educate yourself in that area. Find the people that are doing the things that you want to do. Understand the deal. Don't ever invest emotionally. Don't get excited about something and invest in it because you think it's cool or it's with people that you love. Invest in a deal because the numbers pin and because you accept the risk over the reward. And then if you have like maybe 5 or 10,000, you can can always do cryptocurrency or stocks, or you can join an investment club. We're starting an investment club where I think it's a $10,000 buy-in. And what I mean is you bring your $10,000 and we don't take that. We teach you how to invest it. So the investment club is like a learn and earn. So there's different ways to do things, but go onto the YouTube sphere and educate yourself, because there's so much free education out there that I really don't think anybody has an excuse to not be able to get educated in the area that they're interested in, and pivot and make some big moves and get advice from people if you want to. Like if you think you have it right, but you're second guessing yourself, that's okay. Find somebody that's doing it and say, would you mind going through this with me and seeing if I did it right? 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I've never asked somebody for advice or help and they've said no. Never. I mean, knock on wood. I don't want to speak that into the challenge, but like I even paid when I first started, I paid my attorney. I said, I want to buy 2 hours of your time. And I said, I just want to sit down and I want to like drill you on every deal you did and how it came together and what happened. He goes, what? And I'm like, yeah. And we did. And at the end of that 2 hours, he goes, this is the most fun I've ever had in a client meeting. I'm like, great. And what I learned was how to color on the page, right? With investing and all that stuff. And that's another step. It's another rep, right? It's getting in the room. And so I love that. And I know we can go for like probably 5,000-10,000 more hours and talk about this. And so I want to wrap up at least our first session, maybe have you back on here. But if somebody is saying, oh my gosh, I love Tracy, I need more of her in my life. Now you've written a couple books, which I said we were going to get to before we hit record, and we have not, but I think that's why I want to bring you back. But tell the listeners, and I'll put it in the show notes, where they can reach you to learn more about you, to follow along with your journey and your education and everything that you offer to your sphere, really.
Yeah. Well, I'm on all of the social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. I've actually started dropping little nuggets of wisdom into YouTube, short videos. And you can go to my platform, tracygore.ai. And yes, you can actually chat with my clone on there if you want. But if you submit a prayer request, that actually goes to me, not my AI. So I will actually pray for you. But you can find my books there. You can find all my initiatives. If there's a new fund coming up, it'll be there. There'll be links to all the different things to take you wherever you need to go. So tracygore.ai, that's where I'm at.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you. And I'm going to put her books in the show notes as well, even though we did not get to that, but they're
on Amazon.
Awesome. She is a best-selling author, and the depth and breadth, like I said, when I first started, I'm like, I know you're a rock star. And like I vetted you before, but like when we started doing the deep dive, I was like, whoa. And I love that because everybody has a story and a journey, and they've all reached and gone through different stumbles, different hiccups. And you may not see that on a LinkedIn profile, but that's why I love having you in this room. I love having you on Real Talk with Katie Kim, because those are the stories that have also defined your character and your path. And so I thank you so much for sharing those with me and with everybody that's listening. Yeah. And if this episode has hit a chord with you, if this has touched you in a way you're like, I want to learn more, please reach out to Tracy. And even more so, if you know somebody, especially a woman who's going through this struggle or going through a journey that may need to hear Tracy's story, please share this episode with her, because sharing is caring, and we're only going to build each other up by bringing each other along and getting everyone in the room. Thank you for joining us with Real Talk with Katie Kim. We'll see you next time. Let's go. Before we wrap up, if someone in your world needs this conversation, a founder who's carrying a lot and ready for clarity, send this episode to her. These messages land deeper when we share them. And if you're in that space where you know your business can grow, you feel the potential, but the next strategic step isn't fully clear yet, let's talk. You don't need a new identity. You don't need to force a direction. You just need clarity that's aligned with your goals, your numbers, and the life you want to lead. I invite you to book a call with my team. We'll look at where you are, identify the real leverage points, and map the smartest next move, whether that's one of our free resources, a workshop, or deeper support. Clarity creates momentum. Let's get yours. Let's go. The information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. It's not financial advice. It's not investment advice. Real estate development, like any investment, carries risk. Before you make decisions, you should always consult a licensed professional, your attorney, your CPA, or your financial financial advisor, to name a few, to make sure you're making the right choice for your situation. I'm here to share insights and strategy, but you're responsible for your own decisions, and each situation is unique. So make sure you contact your professional team to give you your specific guidance for your specific case, as each real estate development's different and unique and has its own challenges and opportunities.